Welcome in, local football fans. James Phillips here. I'm joined by Brian Hale, as always, pretty much, right? And this is our DME PrepZone wrap-up. All right, Brian, we've just finished up week 1 of the high school football season, and what a week it's been. I mean, we've had some good games. We've had some blowouts. Games went pretty much the way that we had thought they would. Let's kick it off, though, with what was our first game of the week this week on Thursday night. Coleman Bearcats travel to Jasper to play the Vikings, and the Vikings come out with a 21-19 victory. What a game for Jasper.
What a grand one. It was an absolutely wonderful game. Of course, if you're Coach Moore, it's not. He was not very happy camper, especially there at halftime. There was a lot of errors, but it's obvious ones that Jasper can work on. And I think that only Jasper will get much better as the week goes on. I think this week off coming up is going to do wonders to iron out a lot of those points. But I tell you what really impressed me the most, Parker Sawyer.
Yeah.
We had 5 incompletions.
Yeah, I think he was 17 for 22, almost 200 yards in the air. A lot of dink and dunk type passes for a guy with not much experience. That was probably a smart play calling by the offensive coaching staff, but he played a very good game.
And I think what really helped him out is, and of course I know this really helped out Caden, is having J.C. Collins alongside of Caden Shelton. When both of them, when they needed to rest, one would come in.
Right.
If there was one of those chances, when they have cramps, which we see so much in the first game, the other one could come in. And of course, the offensive line gave the guys plenty of room to run through the holes and also complete the passes. And defensively wise, look, if it wasn't for those two big plays, Coleman would have 150 yards on the night?
Oh, not even that much.
Yeah.
The defense played really well. What I noticed was the size of the Jasper defensive line. They were larger and faster than the Coleman offensive line.
Yes, they were.
And they won that war in the trenches the entire night. Jaden Vance had 7 tackles at a defensive lineman spot. He was in the backfield probably as much as some of the Coleman running backs were in the backfield. And then you've got Brody Vinson, Andre Reese. Those guys, they were constantly hounding the running backs and just blowing that offensive line out of the way.
And Sheldrick Cherry looked like Iron Man at some points, leaping up there and trying to bat down those passes and grabbing the interception.
Right.
Good Lord.
And we said going into the season, the Jasper defense is legit. Like most everybody is back. They're big, they're strong, they're athletic, they're fast. It's going to be tough for people to score on them.
Yes, it is. It really is.
And if the offense can just be, productive, if they don't have to be dynamic. If they can just be productive, like they were in this game, but not shoot themselves in the foot. They had a lot of times in this game where it was either a penalty that showed up, they fumbled the ball, or just stalled and just couldn't execute. And I don't think that's going to be what we see throughout the season. I think those things will get solved. And I think you'll see Jasper rolling, 40, 50 points a game.
Yeah, because they can be dynamic. They don't have to be, but I think they're going to be dynamic.
Right. And the 2 running backs really did not have their best games, and both of them went over 75 yards.
Yep.
So, we'll see. Most weeks, those 2 running backs are going to have 100 yards rushing each, and then you're going to see a couple of receivers with 100 yards each.
It's going to be blazing.
All right. Now, as you see, people will see me looking at my telephone. DMEPrepZone.com is your place to go for scores, and so that's where we go for our scores as well. The other game on Thursday night, Cold Springs and Meek. Cold Springs just put it to Meek there in Arley, 25-0. And that was probably worse than we expected it to be.
Well, honestly, and I told this to our buddy Zach when he had gotten done with his show on Thursday. Honestly didn't really know what to expect in this game. I gave it to Meek just on home field advantage.
Right.
But I honestly didn't know what to expect. I told him, I said, I could see Meek winning this game by 2 touchdowns. I could see Cold Springs blowing them out. So really right now the script is just kind of unknown. But I kind of think it also tells you that Meek's going to have some building to do this year.
Yeah, Cold Springs is not a traditionally dominant program.
No.
And so Meek definitely has an uphill battle of losing that opening game 25-0.
Yeah.
Let's go into Friday night games. Friday night, Carbon Hill struggled offensively, and they lost to Good Hope 28-9. Scored a touchdown late in the game. to make it a little more respectable. But the Bulldogs offense, they've lost a lot from last year, and going to have to find the right pieces to put some points on the board. And it doesn't get any easier because they'll travel to Dora this next week.
Yeah, and of course we knew that coming in. Defensively, we knew that Carbon Hill had some talent coming back, but offensively, when you lose a John Michael Madison, when you lose a Carson McGinnis, when you lose really underrated players like Brandon Scholes, when you lose, these guys that were really playmakers, big time, you knew that it was going to take time for the offense to get going, and I think that's what we're seeing. Carbon Hill will be fine. Eventually, it will iron itself out. Chavis's first game, Coach Williams' first game, coaching everything, first week. And remember, this is a good team that won 11 games last year. They got used to success real quick.
Yeah, they're a good football team for sure. Let's go the game you were at this week. Addison hosting Curry, and that just did not turn out the way last year's game was. It was such a nail-biter last year, close game, but the Yellow Jackets have really lost a lot of players from a season ago. And Addison, just like always, they just retool and refuel and rebuild, and they just keep going. And that's they looked like the number 3 team in the state tonight.
And they could have done a lot more. I'm telling you. I mean, they have a few things to iron out, but Addison is definitely for real. There's new playmakers that are emerging, guys that went through an entire system, an entire year last year with them, but were ineligible because they were transfers. They're with them this year, and they're going to be scary good. Of course, James, next week, I don't know how much good it's doing against Piedmont. I mean, they're basically going to go play Godzilla next week.
Right, and that's going to be a crazy good game probably between those two teams.
But I really think that Addison in region play, nobody will touch them. This is probably going to be at least another third-round playoff year from what I've seen of Addison. They just look that good.
Right. I mean, I think Addison can go through the motions and end up in the second round of the playoffs every year. That's just what happens.
Yeah. I mean, they completely just retool their system. Everybody knows what's going on through the years as they go up. I'm telling you, Addison, Jasper, and Oakman are going to be our prime teams this year. And we could see something out of one of our other teams coming up when you mentioned.
Right. Well, how about we skip over to Hackleburg, where Winston County went in, and they come out with a 44-16 win. And that's a statement by the Yellow Jackets that they're for real. I mean, Hackleburg isn't a perennial state contender.
No.
But typically these two teams are very, very equal. We thought that would be a close game, and Winston County just blows the doors off.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see the stats on that one. I want to see if Winston County threw any. Last year, they were primarily a running team. I want to see if they've integrated any pass. Because if they did, here's Winston County's problem. They're eventually going to run into Addison.
Right.
And Addison kind of went more two-dimensional tonight than just running the ball. Could be a problem. What that basically means, though, is Winston County, if they've already drubbed that much out to Hackleburg, they're going to be a force this year.
Right. They've got a good chance to be in the top 2 spots in that region.
Absolutely.
I think the team that you were foreshadowing about a little bit was probably the Corner Yellow Jackets. They traveled to Northside tonight and picked up a 20-12 win. These two teams played a 1-point game last year with Northside coming out on top. Corner wins this one, and you and I both are very high on Corner. We think they can be the number 2 team behind Jasper and can push Jasper in Class 5A Region 7.
Yeah, I believe right now, and this is just early going, that number 2 spot is going to be a dogfight in between Dora and Corner. I really strongly think that. Corner has a lot that returned back. We've got to remember that this is a team that when they made their changes, their last 5 out of 6, they won. The only team that they lost to, state champion, Central Clay County.
Right.
They went down tonight to Northside.
There's no pushover.
No, Northside's a very good team. And they ended up pulling this out by 8 points. That's only going to get better. Corner is legitimate. I'm really going to be anticipating that Dora Corner game this year that could decide number 2.
Right. And then probably the best game of the night, an overtime game between Hansville and Summerton Christian that we thought it was over at halftime. It was 26-6 at halftime. Summerton Christian storms back. They tie the game in the fourth quarter, 26-26. They end up falling 32-26. But what a statement by the Eagles to stay in that game.
Yep, and this was a game last year that they had to stop it.
Right.
Because it was just, there was no use to playing it anymore. For them to come back and it be that close, we knew coming in, you just had to look at what Coach Powell did in his 26 years at McAdory. One losing statement.
Right.
He'll turn it around quickly. We already know that he got the players out. At a 2A level, you can do it.
Well, and from what I was told from a friend at the game, the 26-6 happened because Summerton Christian had 3 turnovers in the second quarter alone. And that's what made that large disadvantage for the Eagles at halftime. So you take those turnovers away, Summerton Christian wins that game.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what we're going to be looking at, and probably if I'm a Summerton Christian fan, I'm taking away that, wow, look at last year to this year's game. The biggest improvements are usually made in between week 1 to week 2. Let's see what's going on. Of course, they've got Decatur Heritage and Aliceville coming up, which are 2 deep playoff teams. So that's going to be something to see. But I'll tell you what, I think we are on the verge of seeing a very improved Summerton Christian team this year.
Right. Okay, Brian, final game then. Our game of the week this week for PrepZone was Dora traveling to Cordova, and we've talked about how big a rivalry that is. And I know it all too well, being a Dora grad. But Dora comes out on top, 25-15. They were up 20-0. Cordova scores, makes it 20-6. Dora answers right back, 27-6. And then Cordova scores late in the game to make it really respectable at 27-15. Now, we all picked Dora to win this game, but Cordova showed that there's some life there, and they're going to turn this program around, and I think we're going to see good things out of the Blue Devils before the season's over.
Well, I think for the most part, would you say this kind of went as you expected, that Cordova would show a lot better than their 31-0 loss last year versus this year? I think we would see that, but at the same time, it's the first game under Coach Jones. They're playing guys that have been under Coach Lockhart for 3 years. Coach Lockhart's got them hungry, and we know the vast improvements that they have made physically, strength-wise, getting heavier.
Right. We
knew that was going to play a big role in this. So first game, I think this kind of went as it was supposed to go.
Right.
And I really think that what you'll see is the continual improvements coming from Cordova. Hey, look, there's a lot more energy and a lot more fire in that program. Just the numbers show that. All you've got to do is see the enthusiasm. I know Jeff Winborn and Jonathan Bentley were both there. Right. I know they could feel the energy there. It's a different day.
Oh, it definitely is a different day, Cordova. And, I think this Dora team, the team last year was such a Jekyll and Hyde. They'd play a great game, then they'd play a terrible game, then they'd play a terrible game, they'd play a decent game, and it was all over the board. Mm-hmm. But I feel like this team has a chip on their shoulders because, people have talked all offseason about they lost certain players and certain players are playing other places now. Well, there's still some good players at Dora High School.
Absolutely.
And, that offensive line is big. They've got athletes. Mm-hmm. They've got the best kicker in the county in Brady Spradlin. And we need to say, I don't know if you noticed, but on my Facebook feed, I noticed that Brady was injured tonight. Had to go to the ER, and they were afraid that he had a broken ankle or something along those lines. But it's just a sprain, but definitely – we'll be praying for Brady and for him to have a quick recovery. But that Dora team, they're going to surprise some people this year, I think. People had kind of written them off after last season.
Yeah, and we also have to mention with Brady's injury, it wasn't a good night for kickers. Cody Dunaway for Curry broke 2 bones in his leg and was being operated tonight at Children's Hospital. So thoughts and prayers go out to Cody Dunaway. He had a good game before going out. Not a good night for kickers, so we need to keep our thoughts and prayers for both of those guys. But from what I understand, Harold Spradlin, Brady's dad, had contacted Sebastian and said it looked like it was a more minor injury. Maybe he'll just miss at most a few days of practice because he's an all-state punter, he's a great kicker, needs to be out there showing it so we can get him signed to Division I.
That's right. Well, and they need him this week because you got Carbon Hill coming to Dora, and that's going to be our DME Prep Zone game of the week. that's going to be a game that is a fight, because after what happened last year with Carbon Hill upsetting the Bulldogs 16-0, shut them out. That's going to be a game that Dora really wants. And then you've got Chavis Williams that's the coach. He's coming back to Dora to coach Carbon Hill. A lot of storylines coming out of that game, and that's going to be a fun game to be at.
And you know the Carbon Hill players want to show their coach that they're better than what they showed against Good Hope. They want to make those week 1 to week 2 improvements. So both of these teams are going to be big time motivated going into Dora Carbon Hill.
Right. Now, before we mention any, we'll probably talk a little bit of college here in just a second before we go, but I do want to mention that everybody sees here our DME playbook. PrepZone playbook that came out this week on Thursday. I've had some people message me even today and say, hey, how can I get my hands on that? I didn't get the Thursday paper. Well, we've been giving them out at stadiums across the county at the games we've been at. And then also we have them available here at the office. If people come by, they're $1 here at the office. Come by and get you as many as you want. We've got several. We've got plenty of copies of it. We've also got our posters that we put out each year that have the schedules on them. Those are $1 a piece. We've got a county one and a city one. So, you know, plenty of high school football going on here at the Daily Mountain Eagle. We did mention DMEPrepZone.com. I want to mention our sponsors for PrepZone this year. We know we're branding our high school football coverage because we do it better than anybody. We know high school football.
You know it.
And our sponsors, our title sponsor is Southern Orthopedic. They're involved with everything we do at PrepZone. We're giving away stuff from Southern Orthopedic when we're at the games. We've also got Nelson, Bryan, and Cross. Nelson, Bryan, and Cross always supports local athletics, and they're a huge fan of the Daily Mountain Eagle. Bank of Walker County, what a business Bank of Walker County is.
Wonderful
here.
people.
And the Wilsons are hearts of gold. You know?
Yeah, wonderful people.
And then you've got Kilgore Green Funeral Home, Dale Green. I can't say enough about him. He's my. I'm in the quarterback club at Jasper. He's the president, so I got to say good things about him.
Absolutely.
And then Bevel State Community College. I mean, what can you say about Bevel State? We got hoops coming up, and we'll be doing the audio broadcast of their basketball games. And so, you know, we appreciate all of our sponsors, but they've really stepped up and they're supporting PrepZone this year.
Absolutely. We've got a great group of sponsors, great group that are with us, and we're proud to have them aboard.
Well, Brian, let's talk about some college football real quick. I don't understand this week 0. Like, honestly, I don't even know why we have it. I know you're not caring anything about it because the biggest game of the weekend involves your most hated team, the Florida Gators.
Okay, well, before we get onto that subject, I don't understand week 0 either because what does 0 mean? It means nothing.
Right, exactly.
So how can you have it? Just name it week 1 and let's get it over with.
We'll play it next week when everybody else is playing. You know, it's kind of like certain high school teams having a jamboree the first week of football season. That can be a little confusing for people.
That's right.
So we have a week 0, and we've got Florida and Miami. So what do you think?
Well, if you typically look at this game, Florida has had a lot of problems beating Miami over the years. It was 2008 is the only time in this current century that Florida has beaten Miami, and that was at the point which they started getting grounded in the ground. They just decided to beat up Tebow.
Right.
So at that point, that was it. But typically, it's one of these, as a Florida-born resident, it's a South Florida versus a North Florida thing. And typically, Miami has an easier time beating up Florida than the vice versa. Here's the other problem. For the past 3 weeks, Florida has lost a member off their team.
Right.
Be it to eligibility, be it to suspension. Big guys just quitting.
Right.
So I'm just wondering who's going to be quitting this week. Eventually, at some point, Florida's not going to have too many starters left. And that's what I think what goes on. Miami is more of a cohesive team.
Right.
And I'm just not really that sold on Felipe Franks. Never have been. So I'm going to say that simply because Miami just has this power over Florida and they have an advantage, plus Felipe Franks just ain't getting it done, I'm thinking Miami.
You're going the Hurricanes, huh?
Of course I am.
And this isn't just because of your hatred of the Gators.
Yeah, I hate the Gators more than I hate anything else in life.
Okay. Well, you know, people may not understand. You did mention that you're a native Floridian.
Yeah, I am.
You grew up in the Jacksonville area.
Right, not too far away from where they play Florida, Georgia.
But you were an Alabama fan growing up.
Yep.
And so you were picked on and hated on by the Gators.
That's the nicest way of putting it.
Right. I don't want to get too in depth.
No.
But that has hardened your heart towards the Gator Nation more than anything else.
Well, and it's also, I am backing up with facts. I took a good look at this. I showed it to Jonathan as well.
Right.
Miami typically has lorded over Florida.
Well, and you've got a good argument,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going with the Gators. And I apologize now. I'll be fine if the Gators lose. It'll make me feel good that it warms your heart if they lose.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with the Gators. I think they win, and I feel like they're going to be a team to reckon with in the East this year.
If they have enough starters left.
Right. I understand. Well, let's go into, there's a couple other college games.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Arizona. Kevin Sumlin era starts at Arizona. They're traveling to Hawaii. That's an interesting game. When Zach was in here, Zach McCullough does his picks every Thursday. He went with Hawaii and didn't hesitate. He said Hawaii. And I've got to go with Arizona. I think Sumlin's going to right that ship. They're favored by 11, 12 points. I'm going with Arizona in that one.
Well, I'm actually going with Zach on this one because Hawaii's a different atmosphere. And people don't understand the travel to Hawaii. They think that Hawaii's maybe, 500, 600 miles from the closest airport, which is Los Angeles.
Right.
No, it's 2,500 miles. So if you're going from all the way to Arizona, you have a lot of travel that you have to do. You go through a lot of time zones. It's a lot different than playing, let's just say, going to play Memphis.
Right, yeah.
So
you're telling me you can't drive from Arizona to Hawaii?
No, of course not. There's only two ways that you can get there. You can either fly or you can either take a boat, one way or the other. Of course, getting there faster is done by plane. Until, of course, we develop, the teleportation and get you in there instantly.
Right.
Unfortunately, we can't do that yet. So you're going to have to fly. That's
you could swim if you're a really good swimmer.
Well, if you're Aquaman, yeah, you can get there in 10 minutes.
Right.
But unfortunately, we're not. So, but the jet lag, the time distortion going in between that time period to a different time period, that factors in. And except for his few years when he had Johnny Manziel, what's Kevin Sumlin really done? He should have done it at Texas A&M. Is he going to do it at Arizona?
Arizona's been tough for anybody to win that in a while. All right, well, so we've got that game out of the way. Sanford and Youngstown State, that was one that we picked.
Now, that's a team that's close to my heart.
You love the Bulldogs.
Yes.
You've even got a Sanford license plate. People probably don't realize that. And you go cover their games a good bit. And they treat us like kings when we show up at Sanford.
You betcha.
And I went with Sanford. So I'm sure you probably did too, right?
Yeah, because, you've got to think Coach Hatcher is now have quite a few seasons under his belt. He's got a system in there. It's successful. They have gone to the FCS playoffs. So there's no reason to dispute that. Youngstown State went, 4-7, 4-8 last year? Yeah. They're not a successful program since Jim Tressel's been there. So, yeah, I'm going to take Sanford. Plus, Sanford doesn't have that much of a trip from Homewood down to Montgomery, whereas Youngstown's got to come from Ohio. So that can play into it. I think first-year jitters, first-week jitters are easily taken care of, and Sanford takes this one.
Okay. Well, I guess that wraps it up for the games this week, right?
I would believe so. We just had a total of 3 on the limb. I don't believe that there's any more than that. And, of course, we don't have pro football in this state. Why should we touch that?
Right. Well, and the college season really starts next week.
Of course.
Because we get Alabama, we get Auburn. And we'll talk about those games in depth on next Saturday's show. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to mention before we go, we mentioned the playbook here, our posters. Definitely come by the office and get those. Brian, what about our hats here?
I love them.
Foothills Festival.
I love them.
Coming up in 2 weeks in Jasper. Blues Traveler will be in town. The Foothills Festival is always a huge event in Jasper. It draws 20 to 30,000 people every year. And we have some of the best music acts that anybody could have at a free festival.
James, we have heard, though, from our friend James Spann, that the weather is going to be dynamite.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the weather's going to be good. It's going to be nice for Foothills. It's going to be a little bit cooler, which we all are happy about.
Of course.
And, I cannot wait. I've got my T-shirt on. So September the 6th and 7th.
That's right.
Friday night. Come see Whiskey Myers. They're an awesome band if nobody's seen them. After, it'll be Dora and Jasper playing in Jasper that night. Come to the Foothills Festival after that game. check out some awesome music. And then on Saturday, we've got North Mississippi All-Stars. We've got Blues Traveler. I mean, it is going to be an incredible Saturday. I can't wait. We'll have a booth. The Eagle always has a booth, and we'll be having our playbooks. We'll have our posters. We're going to be giving out some T-shirts. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll have full coverage. We've got our drone up in the air. We'll have live videos. It's going to be a great day in Jasper.
I want to hear Blues Traveler do Run Around.
I do too.
mean, I have loved that song since it first came out in '95.
Well,
I want to hear it.
I don't know if you know him. Do you know Andrew Brassfield that works at Bevel State?
I've heard of Andrew.
Andrew hosts an open mic night at Twisted Barley every other Thursday. Andrew is a professional musician on top of working at Bevel State. Plays the harmonica as good as anybody I've ever heard.
Wow.
And I really hope that there's some way we can get Andrew Brassfield on stage with Blues Traveler.
That would be so cool.
It would be the most awesome thing, and he would love it. Andrew played with John Rich last year in Birmingham. John Rich paid him to come play. That's how good he is.
Nice.
Yeah. So
nice.
we need to make that happen, and I'm going to do my part. I think they're going to have extra security at the green room probably this year, because I'm going to do my best to sneak in and get old Andrew in there. Nobody that's watching, please don't tell anybody that. I don't, you know.
He should have left Rhino in there too. He would have been security.
I know, but this is between us, okay? Don't tell anybody I'm sneaking Brassfield on stage. Andrew, you keep it quiet too. Brian, great first week of high school football season.
Loved it.
It's late on Friday night. We're getting a little crazy. We've had 2 nights of football now, and next week's going to be just as good. And I hope everybody has enjoyed DME PrepZone.
Week 1 has set the standard. It has really set the standard. We're going to be looking for weeks this good coming on out.
That's right. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check us out each week. Check out our preview shows. Check out the Coach Moore show that we do each week. And then every Saturday, you're going to have to put up with these two faces as we go over high school football and talk about a little college too. And we might get some visitors in here from time to time too. You know.
Hey, it could be worse. You could have Bernie Gary.
That's true. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen any Facebook comments about me and you like I see every week with Bernie.
No.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in again, and we'll see you next week.